Oh, okay. So it's recording again.
So did it miss stuff?
So like this is our first one that we thought that it wasn't recording or didn't upload.
Mm-hmm.
And that's there now. It shows the timestamp. If it's showing a timestamp, then that has info.
Right.
This one is showing 00, but it could just be like working on uploading still.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that we keep going and then just look back and see. And if
Okay.
and a good surefire way to see if it's actually like indeed uploading is if it shows up on our drive.
Oh, right.
Because it backs up to there.
Yeah.
So I just wonder, is this going to happen every 5 minutes?
Right? I mean, it said it was at 12 minutes.
Unless we do it, do we record this on our phone? I don't know what to do.
I mean,
because the thing is like, which is nice about this is that we'll have super nice audio,
right?
Video.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, because the audio is still going.
Mm-hmm.
We were, I think, for like a couple episodes, we recorded with video, right, with the intention of like uploading it to Patreon or something. But
we
it
did
just,
it once, and
yeah.
I forget what happened with that.
I think there was too much lag between us.
Oh yeah, it was the audio drift.
Yeah,
it was just way out of sync.
Makes me wonder. Like the video portion is new, still relatively new, right? It's the Zencaster, so I feel like maybe that's what we're dealing with. It just makes me so nervous, and I hate that.
I mean, we could try doing it from my computer to see if, I don't know if it's some weird connectivity to your computer, but
yeah, I don't know why. What, this is a gaming laptop. It's like should be.
Yeah, it should have like a super processor, right?
Yep. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, well, I wonder if this is recording too. Because it shows it's recording.
Right.
2 minutes, 42 seconds. It says recording in progress. So it's been recording since we've refreshed it.
Okay.
So even if we have to do it in like cuts and edits or clips, I can always just like edit that within the video. Yeah.
Okay.
We can still make it work. It's fine. And like when you think of like those like vloggers, they always kind of have like very kind of clippy audio, so we can kind of make it look like that, but not too annoyingly clippy.
Big bold words going across the screen.
So what we were saying? We were talking about you having been.
Oh, and that
the reason why, like, so the lag between
August and June.
Yeah, from when you were first featured on the podcast. Yep. I mean, there's also that period of time for a few weeks where I didn't know if, like, I thought that Melanie was going to be coming back eventually. And then she decided to take a step back. And then that's when I'm like, okay. And started putting the feelers out for other potential new co-hosts. And I mean, I already like loved your vibe from our interview.
Oh,
and then you were like, I'd be down, and I'm like, perfect.
I sent in a formal application.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there wasn't an application, but she sent one in anyways.
Yeah, I guess more of like a cover letter.
Yeah, you sent in a very convincing cover letter. I mean, you were already on the top of my list at that point. But yeah, I think it was that. I also wanted to, because one thing was like I knew how involved. Honestly, guys, a podcast is so much more work than you'd think. Mm-hmm. Like so much more work, and then us also like the commitment aspect of it. Yeah. On top of it,
which I feel like that would be good for us to get into, like after this part of just like everything we do.
Yeah.
That is podcasty.
Yeah, for sure. Because for me, like, I know that there's podcasts out there that they kind of roll out an episode whenever they can, which is totally fine because it's like, whatever, it's your podcast, you do what you want. But it was really important for me to have like a scheduled, reliable, like, podcast. And so I'm like, oh, like, let's have you on as a guest host, and you just like feel out kind of what the whole process is before you like, tell me you really want to commit to this, because it's a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, you rose up to the challenge. You're like, perfect.
Yeah. And it wasn't, that there was that process. And then once it was decided that I would join, then it was a matter of cover art.
Yes.
And getting that, worked out and finding the best possible person. That was perfect.
Our original cover art featured a really adorable illustration of me and Melanie, which Melanie drew. Melanie is such a talented illustrator. Like, it's dumb how talented Melanie is. And, if you followed her from the beginning, you still keep up with her, but yeah, so, I mean, I'm like, oh, well, like, I feel like, and then for me as like a graphic designer / a person who's been in marketing for years, I'm like, when we like announce that you're the new co-host, we need to launch a whole new look and everything. Like, it'd be great to like rebrand or whatever, like the rebranding pretty much being just a refresh on the cover art.
Pretty much.
But yeah, we were considering different artists, and we took time to kind of do our research and find different illustrators on Instagram. And then we ran into María Boutin, who is amazing.
Yep.
Her handle is at Besitos and Giggles on Instagram. We just loved her style.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she made us look like Disney princesses.
She really did. And she was also just like really nice to work with.
She's so lovely.
Yeah.
She's so lovely. Love also just supporting a small business owned by a woman of color.
And everything she stands for, if you follow her, you kind of see like what her art is and how she uses did you see her most recent?
Yeah, she just dropped. Yeah, she just dropped her goddess collection, or celestial goddess collection. It's gorgeous. So she also works in 3D. Like, she makes sculptures and stuff, or like little plaques.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like this whole beautiful body positivity campaign. So she has a lot of like really adorable illustrations, some witchy themed ones, a lot of witchy themed stuff. But then she just like dropped this celestial goddess.
Right.
We'll link it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Check her out. We love her. Like, she's amazing.
Everything about her. She's fantastic.
Yeah.
It worked out so well.
It really did. She also illustrated the other like icons. Like, when we post on our socials, there's a different kind of icon cover art per, like, whether we're doing a witchy episode or a spooky episode or our listeners episode.
Right.
She illustrated all of those as well.
We should look into getting a creepy.
Oh, creepy stories of Laura.
Maybe even Cauldron. Well, I don't know, because that goes to Patreon.
I think if we get like a bigger Patreon following, because we have a good following, just like, humble following.
Yeah.
Once I think
we love our following.
We love our following. You guys are amazing and stellar, and I am like, it does not compute in me that we have even the amount of people we have that are, like, being so generous with their money to pay and be part of like our little online community, and to actually want to hear more from us. Like, you want more of this? But yeah, so, I also would love to like do like a cool like sticker, like, or merch, like sticker pack or something with her. So I know that Maria will be listening to this, so, because she listens to that podcast. So that's upcoming. We'll keep in touch, Maria.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to hear like your perspective on, coming into the podcast.
Sure. It was kind of wild, and I know like what I'm about to say I've heard from our listeners is that it was fun and interesting when the podcast launched and listening to it, because though I didn't know Melanie, I knew you.
Mm-hmm.
And hearing your voice and talking about stuff I was interested in, it was like I wanted to be able to talk back and be a part of the conversation, but you can't, damn it, when it comes to it's a thing. I know a lot of our listeners experience it because they've mentioned it. Like, I just want to join in.
Mm-hmm. And we love that our listeners feel like that they're just listening to, that they're sitting in with us, which is exactly what we're going for.
Yep. That's exactly what I felt. And then as soon as you mentioned that you were... I think the interview kind of came first, and that was like, that's going to be really cool and fun. And then getting to be a part was like so exciting. Like, I'm going to be interviewed for like an interest of mine. This isn't like a job interview or not even like a first date where you're, sizing the other person up. Like, do I like you? Do I want to continue? Like, this was just a pure like, hey, I'm going to ask you some questions. And that was super fun. And it kind of left me being like, I don't want to say jealous because jealous wasn't the word, but like, that was really fun. I want to do more.
It can be addicting.
I want to, like, maybe I need my own podcast. I don't know what I would talk about. And, but it was shortly after that, you're like, hey, do you want to like help me out? I forget if I reached out. Maybe I said like, if you need any help, let me know, or I forget. And then doing, I think the next episode after that was the dream work for beginners.
Yeah.
And I remember you were like, okay, you're going to help me host the next one. That's awesome. Do you have any ideas for like topics? And then having my idea picked was like, this is so fun. It was super exciting. And then eventually like being like, well, yeah, if, I think you'd make a great co-host. Like, let's do this. I can't even tell you like how revved up I was. And I'm, disabled. So when I get revved up, you can't always tell. It's a very quiet, well, I shouldn't say quiet because I'm a very loud person, but energetically quiet.
Yeah.
I was so stoked.
Jazzed.
So jazzed. Jazzy hands going off to the side. So then coming in, like I knew I needed to learn a lot about what went into a podcast. I was trying to be very mindful of like what I knew and what I didn't know, and what you were in charge of, and kind of like figuring out the audio stuff. That was really interesting in the beginning, trying to get set up just right, really learning that like you need the right stuff. You really do.
And thank you to our Patreon members, because you're the ones that help pay for Laura's mic.
You bought this.
That literally changed the game.
Yep.
It changed the game.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the evolution of just our audio quality. Holy crap. I
think our one review that's not a great review.
And by not great, I mean like we got 4 instead of 5 stars.
Yeah.
We're still peeved, but it's fine. It's fine.
I actually think it was 3.
What?
I could be wrong. But their critique was the audio quality.
Yeah, I mean, and being like a new podcast, that's to be expected.
Yep.
Especially one that's done during a pandemic where we couldn't do this in person.
Mm-hmm.
Until now, we're both vaccinated. We did it. And yeah, it was like, honestly, like I was probably the only one with like the good it was your audio. Not that it was your fault, but it was just like the equipment we had to work with, the circumstance we had to work with. You had like a stage mic at one point before you got this one.
What I got was actually supposed to be for podcasting.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a stage mic because I remember it had like a little stand.
Yeah, it was, and it was like the whole setup, like the arm that it goes into, so you can move it. Which I eventually want to get something like that again.
I mean, this has an attachment,
Mm-hmm.
so you can do that. I also want to get that too. But yeah, it was just like, but then we just, what was it? You were using a program that just like the audio was just not consistent.
The things didn't work together because I still use that program for creepy stories.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it seems you guys tell me, no one gives me feedback on those. So
it was a compatibility thing then.
Yeah, it was really weird. And I have a friend who's like, I forget his exact title, like sound engineer, like sound shit is his thing. And he was trying to help me problem solve it, and he was also kind of dumbfounded. And then once I got this mic, I sent him a little clip, and he's like, "Holy shit,
so much better."
Well, what mic is that? As if he doesn't have a good mic. I mean, his stuff is fantastic. He actually tomorrow, he is part of I forget what it was called, but it was a bunch of musicians getting together and doing 9 Inch Nail covers.
Oh, cool.
And he did like a music video to go with his. And I'm
awesome.
so excited to see it. He
nice.
I don't know. He's a genius when it comes to sound. And he couldn't solve it. So that's how bad it was.
It was just one of those things where like the mic and the program did not like each other.
Mm-mm.
I remember when we also when we discovered Zencastr, that was a game changer. Because that, oh my gosh, just you guys don't even know, y'all don't even know, but yeah, we've come a far way from where we started.
Yeah,
and yeah, like that's why we love our Patreon members so much, and we want you guys to know that it's not like we're just like taking your money and like using it towards Starbucks. Like it helps us make a better show for you guys, because it literally paid for it. This is like the top of the line stuff,
right? And it's so worth it. I mean, well, maybe let's go into what is involved in our podcast.
Yeah, I mean, really basic stuff to just start a podcast. You need a hosting service. So, we pay for that.
Yep.
Like by the hour too. And there's different hosting services, but we've landed on Buzzsprout. We really like that. And so you have to get a hosting, you have to have like the equipment, and
you want decent, I mean, obviously we just talked about the microphone, but even like headphones, you want decent headphones where you're just hearing what you need to hear.
Yeah. And then an editing program, as well as like getting the theme song. So my little sister Leticia, who's 18 now, she was the one that made our theme song like in an afternoon. We're just such a Pisces.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like such a Pisces. Yeah, so and she even like made us like little jingles for like in the future when we do have sponsors and we have to like go in and out of like our ads. She made like little like like things that sound similar to our theme song, but are just like little like music bites, I guess I should call them. So once we get sponsors, you'll be able to hear that. Yeah. But she made that from like the get-go. Just like she set it all up. So that, and obviously a good name, a good some good cover art with your name of the podcast. And that all kind of sounds so simple, but just the way that the ecosystem of a podcast, that's just like, that's your equipment, those are your tools. On top of that, now you have to actually have what you record, like the actual episodes, which when you came on you are still a huge help, because so I do all the editing, and
which is I don't maybe talk a little bit about that, because I don't know that everyone is going to understand like what goes into editing.
So
time-wise especially.
Yeah, it depends because there's some times that we record where I'm like, wow, like there's no like noise interruptions, like we were like very quick, like our energy, and like it was like a perfect flow. But if there's things like Gavin walks in and there's, you know, or like
we constantly have interruptions.
We do. Like there's been 2 instances in the past year where I'm like, oh, well, all I have to do is put our theme song in the beginning and the end and I'm done. Like that happened like twice in the last year. And we're at, you know, 60 plus episodes now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so honestly, like my formula to know how much time I'll have to spend on editing an episode, however long the recording is, it takes about 2 to 2.5 times longer to edit it. Because if there's like a part that I'm like snipping out, then I have to go back and make sure that everything is like transitioning well. What helps though is like, you know, as we're recording, I make like time-stamped footnotes that says like, okay, like, yeah, this is like cut out,
right,
you know, my sneeze, or cut out, you know, the motorcycle in the background, or we start talking about something personal that we don't want on the podcast. We like just do a tangent, like
there are things
cut this the fuck out.
You don't get to know.
I mean, this one is pretty much very uncensored, but if you want more uncensored stuff, listen to our Cauldron Side chat. That one is much more of a
very uncensored.
Holy shit, yeah. Yeah. I still edit out some like very like sensitive, like privacy sensitive things, of course, but otherwise it's pretty just free flowing convo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's what goes into editing it, and then I, you know, uploading it, but then that's like the title, all the tags, the category, like make sure all the tagging is set up on our hosting site, writing the show notes and making sure all those important links are in there, scheduling it out for when it's going to go live, which is usually just like within a few hours. Like pretty much. I always want to think that I'm ahead of schedule. I'm rarely ever ahead of schedule. And then after that's done, then I get like the embed code, which then I can go onto our website because we also post our episodes on our website, and setting the posts, you know, like basically a blog post, but it's just a page to listen to the episode, and then copy pasting the notes there, and then also doing like the SEO for tags and stuff. And it's a lot.
It is a lot.
And previously we were also posting our normal episodes onto Patreon, which was a step that we've taken out. Like we figured our Patreon members are mostly listening to us on the directories and not on Patreon. So, you know, they'll just mostly go for their bonus content to Patreon, and we can just, that save time. So yeah, but that's it.
That's it. Meanwhile, I do my creepy episode once a month, and I'm like, fuck, this is a lot.
Yeah. And I do this 1 to 2 times a week.
Yeah.
If we're, you guys, our listener episode is an extra one that happens that I also edit. Not that I'm complaining, but it's just like, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of time.
And you help out with notes so much. Like, I mean, I've done notes for myself. Like, in the spooky ones, we always do our own notes. But on a lot of the witchy ones, Laura here, like, tell them.
I love to research a lot. And I think actually one thing that kind of connects those two things is our Trello board that we use to keep things super organized. It helps us immensely.
Yeah.
So that's something that we kind of do together. But I tend to, like, I'll pick a day and I kind of look on there and look at, okay, what kind of episodes do we have coming up? What would make some good witchy episodes? Sometimes, like, I'll text you and be like, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And other times I'm just like, meh.
We're doing this now. And I'll be like, okay.
And, you know, there are times where, like, we talk about a topic that we're like, yeah, let's, like, really make sure we do this. And then, you know, we get that put in on there. But a lot of the witchy ones, I will do the notes for. And there are times where, you know, like the Sigil and Rune one.
You'll even, like, highlight, like, my go-to color is always purple, and I've talked about purple being my power color. She'll, like, title, like, the section titles.
Yep.
She'll highlight it in purple, so that, I mean, I always read through the notes before we start recording, but I'll know, so she's already assigned me what part that I talk about.
And I try to be really fair, like, I'll outline an episode, and be like, hey, these are all of our notes. And then, like, I try and go back and be like, okay, I'll do this, she'll do that, I'll do this, she'll do that. But then I also go back. There was one where we talked about different plants, like herbs. And I was like,
oh, it was probably our ethical, like the smudging one.
It wasn't that one.
Like the smoke cleansing ethics.
Or maybe, yeah. It was things that are acceptable. And I was trying, like, to remember, like, wait, I know Maria likes this plant, so let's make sure she talks about these ones and, like, move those around.
Yeah.
Because, like, with the notes, I mean, it's not a word for word kind of thing. Sometimes, you know, I will go into maybe getting too wordy. And then other times I'm like, just enough, because it's easy to go off of that and you are knowledgeable enough to be able to elaborate, you know, on the topic. And then we do have some episodes where, like I was saying, the Sigil and Rune one, where I was kind of like, hey, do you mind taking care of the sigils?
Yeah.
Do your thing.
I wasn't going to touch the runes.
So there are some where we split it, just like we do the spooky ones, but
in other ones, like our Yule and Saturnalia one, that one we like actually split the researching. So I covered Saturnalia and all those other, like, lesser known Christmas time, you know, Yuletide, anything that happens in December. So yeah, I did, like, the other ones, and then you covered all of Yule. So, like, we'll do that. I'm sure, like, sometimes maybe listeners can tell that I'm kind of reading off of the notes, and maybe you word something in a way where I wouldn't word it, and I kind of ended in and then this. And I'll usually try to, like, repeat once I, like, understand. I'll repeat it in a way where I'm like, I know this, and I'll cut out the one that I'm unsure about. But sometimes I can't even hide it.
That's why I've tried to change how I do the notes too, to just make it super short too. Just to make it, like, easier to read off of, but then also to be able to take it and say it in your own way. Because it's not a script. It's not meant to be a script. It's meant more to be like the prompts. Information to go over. And I like to spend a lot of time thinking about future episodes. I keep notes on suggestions from people. And, like, we have our kind of, like, little schedule on Trello, but then I also have, like, on my phone, like, I play around with, like, okay, well, when should we do this? And when should we do that? Just because I want things spaced out, or maybe, you know, like, right after we mentioned the new, like, Types of Witches series, I was like, I don't want to make that the next one.
Right.
I wanted to kind of spread it out. So that's
and then our ethical witchcraft series that's been so popular.
Yeah.
People love when we do our ethical witchcraft. And I think that has evolved into one of our, like, core messages as witches. You know, like, I mean, our podcast isn't simply about the ethics and going into it, but it is, like, the trunk of, like, how we consider any episode. Yeah. If that makes sense. And then we branch into kind of, like,
well, because it's a big part of us and who we are. We like to be ethical people, which in turn makes us ethical witches. And then if we're sharing that information, we want to do so ethically.
Yeah. And, you know, I think, you know, as both of us have witnessed, as just witches existing on social media, there's so much misinformation that goes out there, a lot of appropriation. It's a huge topic that just has to be addressed. And I really feel like people really appreciate kind of learning, because, I mean, I know there were things that I was doing early on as an infant witch that I should not have been doing.
Right. When you don't know, you don't know.
You just don't know.
Yeah. And then you put something out there, and then maybe someone kind of comes after you. And I always feel for people, not always. There are some people that others go after them, and I'm kind of like, justified. That's good. But then there's other people where I'm like, they just didn't know.
Yeah.
You inform them, they learn. Perfect. And I like that we have this platform to kind of share information to hopefully like help someone avoid that.
Yeah. And we trust that if like there's something that we totally missed or that we you know, we're wrong on, we trust that like we're not afraid of being called out. Like please do so. Like we welcome the correction. We want to, because like one thing is not knowing and another is being told and just continuing on doing your thing. We want to like be better. So
we like accountability.
So like one way is, you know, if you hear something, they're like, oh, well, not really, or absolutely not. Let us know. Obviously we would appreciate it if it's not, you know, in a mean way. Like,
our feelings.
I know. My Cancer moon just like, please don't be mean to me. I'm sensitive. I'm just trying my best. But no, like that is, I think something that, everyone, I mean, especially in the last year, but just in the last few years too, everyone is trying to be, you know, as woke as possible and as aware of things and being respectful of, everyone and having, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion in mind. And we're also both very lucky to we're working in the same place now.
I know.
That they're very much focusing on that too. So we even see it in our workplace. It's a very, very important thing for the both of us. And so it's very encouraging to see that our listeners, you all actually really appreciate it, which is great.
And actually, I was just thinking about it to piggyback off of, you know, letting us know if we say something that's incorrect or maybe it's just kind of off or something. Not only do we want feedback, I especially would be really happy with sources as well. If you have a good source for something, that way it's not just us learning, but that we can then continue learning and help others as well. Be like, hey guys, like we were wrong. We were given this information and we want to share it with you so that like you're on the same page as us. Because I think that's one of the best ways to kind of correct a mistake is you. But then if you have anyone who listens to you, it's like if you had kids, right? You fuck up. You kind of want to let your kids know, I messed up. This is how I messed up. This is how you can avoid messing up too.
If you should be so lucky.
Yeah.
There's some parents that like. Anyways, I'm just sorry. I'm just thinking about the parents of like the last true crime that you covered of Sophie Lancaster. And, like, there's just some parents who suck. So, anyways, moving on. So yeah, I mean, gosh. What else? I mean, okay. Like you. I mean, I guess at this point we can talk about what we are looking forward to.
Yeah. I mean, I know kind of like before we get to like in the future-ish of what we want currently, we are kind of at a place where we are, I don't know, I don't want to say expanding, but like we've got our series.
Yeah.
2 different series that I think in this next year of the podcast, we're going to try and really focus on both of those along with some like fun topics mixed in there.
And those 2 are the ethical witchcraft and the types of witches.
And we didn't really talk about it, but I think, you know, some podcasts have like seasons.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not suggesting we have seasons, but like having a period.
We're starting our off season now. Goodbye.
But to have like, okay, before we introduce another series, like let's spend some time on these and make sure we hit like a certain amount over the next year.
Yeah. Like, just coming up with a schedule so it's like very consistent and evenly spaced out. While, you know, also are just like are delving into other topics in between. Yeah. Of course, like the podcast isn't going to turn into only focusing on ethical witchcraft and types of witches. Right. But you'll definitely be seeing more of that in the coming year.
Yeah. Like, I would say, I don't know. I'm still trying to work on it. If it's like, because we basically do 2 witchy episodes a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out the frequency of series. Maybe like every other month is an ethical one. And every other month we get types of witches. But then that's also paired with just a fun witchy topic.
Yeah. I like it.
Just so that we make sure like we don't get too ADD'd with our scheduling of episodes.
Oh, one thing, speaking of like our series, our OG series, the listener stories.
Yeah.
That one is one that has evolved and that we're excited to see how it continues to shape up in the coming year.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been with us since the beginning, we were at first purely doing just your stories. And also we didn't have a place for you guys to call either. It was just like either on our website, which I'll put here in the video down here. Also, I'll just put in the show notes a link to our website, of course. But going to our contact page, and like we have a submission form there, or people just emailed it in, and it was like anything witchy or spooky, true crimey, ghosty, having to do with any of the topics that we cover. And then recently, a few months ago, we opened it up to questions.
Yeah.
And we also created a Google Voice number.
Yep.
Which has been, it's just made it into a much more layered episode. So we get people's stories still, but then we also get these questions where we will just like respond to it and try to answer it in the best way that we can. And that has gotten a really great response.
Yeah.
As well as also just like the variety of like actually hearing people's voices on the episode too. It's pretty cool. Like you can call us and we'll listen to you guys and we'll put your voice in the podcast.
It's nice to have some of your representation in an episode. I think that's what I was excited about most with the Google Voice.
Yeah.
Was being able to like kind of bring you guys in a little bit.
Yeah. And the questions also really shed light into what you all want to hear more of.
Yeah. It's really helpful.
Like one that comes up so often is like, when are you going to cover like a deep dive into tarot? That's like a big one.
Which is, I've been like, I don't want to do another series, but tarot almost kind of is.
It's so big. Yeah, honestly, it's a huge, huge thing to unpack because gosh, we could do an episode on every like 1 or 2 cards, you know? And there's how many?
So much.
There's like 70 something cards.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is maybe doing some like lesser deep dives into tarot a little bit initially. And then as we get through some more of our other series in the future, doing an actual deep dive.
Yeah. One thing we're really hopeful of too in the future is getting more witches and more like witchy experts on the podcast. We've had our friend Jess, who is our resident astrology expert.
She's also a tarot expert.
Yeah, so we'll probably have her back on a lot. We just obviously like love her energy too.
She loves it. She's a Gemini.
Yeah, I mean, perfect for this kind of platform. And yeah, so we're hopeful for that. Just bringing like not just Jess back. Like we'll definitely have Jess back, but bringing a variety of different witchy people on.
I'm keeping a little list. People I want to ask.
Oh, I have a wish list as well. Yeah,
we'll get it in there.
Yeah, and so I mean, as far as the true crime stuff now or the spooky stuff, how has that like changed at all for you? Because for me, I know that on one hand I've become a little desensitized now. Like I'm not as squeamish when like people describe like her hands were cut off, her legs were cut off, her eyebrows were waxed. But then the paranormal, like I don't know, like we just had the most recent one come out that like creeped me the fuck out.
Right.
And it's just like making me learn like, wow, like the things that really, really creep me out, or like not my boundaries, because I still love hearing those stories, but I don't know. Has that like
all that's really changed for me is more of the true crime aspect of it, which is more, I've always been interested in true crime. I've always tried to kind of examine why I like true crime. I think that's for people who aren't into true crime, that's a big question that they have, is why do you like that? Why do you want to hear about those things? And then there is also a good conversation happening about some of the motivation behind sharing and some of the focus on, you know, the killers themselves.
Yeah.
Like there's that shirt going around like Ted Bundy wasn't hot or something like that.
I mean,
with all the Ted Bundy stands.
Listen, you can say that a person was objectively attractive, but he was a trash human.
Very trash.
Like
dumpster. No, landfill. Landfill fire.
Landfill fire into hell.
Yeah. Like, so basically, I don't know. When I pick my stories, I want to pick something that I think is worth sharing, because not just that it's a true crime story, but that there's something to be learned from it.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of sharing. I don't know. I think like when I look back at like the beginning of my fascination with true crime and like serial killers, it wasn't so much that I liked the serial killers. It was more of like, maybe it was my anxiety talking, but like, how can you be prepared? How can you avoid this? How can you make sure you don't fall
listening
to this?
To people, not that it's ever their fault.
No.
But like, what can I do better? Also, just kind of just that sick fascination of like, what takes a person to go so far.
Yeah.
And
the
also,
psychology aspect really interests me.
Yeah. And I come from a family of psychologists. Like, oh my God, my grandma is like a huge like pioneer in family therapy in Dominican.
I didn't know that.
In Dominican Republic, she's gotten a bajillion and one awards. She's met the Pope. I'm just not the current Pope or even the one before that, but Pope John Paul.
Okay. I have no idea.
John Paul II.
I just thought there was the one that was around for forever.
Like, oh my God!
There's this one.
Well, there was the one that like resigned after him, and then now there's
someone resigned.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, there was John Paul. Then he passed. He was amazing. I was a fan. And that's the one when my grandparents met. There's like a photo of my grandma like kissing his hand and everything. Like flash photography with a cardinal. It's just like very legit. Okay. And then there was this one guy. I feel like his name was like Benedict something.
That's like the only one I remember.
Yeah, and then he was the one that resigned after a few years, and now we have our current Pope, who I know is Argentinian, and the name is escaping me now, and I cannot believe this is the thing we were talking about just in our previous episode. We're like, or no, it was our Cauldron side chat that just came out today. We're so much smarter when we're not being recorded.
So much.
Everything that you're like, I'm like, this name, like it'll come to me as soon as we hit like stop recording.
It's the worst.
What's his name? Everyone is yelling at us right now. It's blah blah. Connor especially is probably like
Francis.
Thank you, Pope Francis. Yes. Well, okay. Anyways, oh yeah. So I come from my family of psychologists. That was a big tangent. So yeah, my grandma was this big pioneer in Dominican Republic for family psychology. Her daughter, my aunt, is a psychologist who studied with my mom, who studied psychology, there's so many psychologists. Everyone's always being like psychoanalyzed in my family, pretty much. It's fine. We're all just sussing each other out. No, but yeah, I've always been interested in psychology, and I also myself often say if I hadn't been as artsy as I was, instead of being a graphic designer, if I had to choose anything else, I would be a psychologist.
If my family had money or I had money and did college, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, but you're like a behavioral therapist. I mean, you were still like, your career was still surrounding that.
Yeah, it's something about like the way people think, the way people make choices, the way people learn from their experiences and from the outcomes of their choices. It's always interested me a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, of course, reading true crime stories, sometimes you're like, how did you not see it? Which is like a whole nother topic of, the outside perspective versus when you're inside.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, very mental healthy. I think that's my like not new, but like more present outlook on true crime.
Yeah, I think especially with so many, not just like docuseries, but actual shows that are like dramatizations of like the Unabomber and the Atlanta Olympic Park bomber too. Like FX did was it FX? They did a TV series pretty much like Manhunt, the Unabomber, whatever, where they show kind of the background of who this criminal was and what made them the way that they are. And again, it's that like sick fascination of what took you, like what led you to go so far. And one thing that's really interesting is that can be very controversial too is the empathy. I think that these TV shows or even just like reality podcasts or shows, you are looking into a person who is human, and unless they like just seem like a psychopath that was always fucked up,
right?
Like one of those things where like inexplicable. Oh, they had the best parents and somehow they just came out horrible. Most of those, a lot of those killers, like they weren't like that to begin with, and like I don't know. For me, like I feel for the person that they used to be, like, and it's sad to see. Kind of like you still did what you did,
right?
And you still deserve whatever punishment you get. But I think that's another aspect for me is like, understanding kind of the background, like what led up to such events because of that, I don't know, human
shit and
aspect.
Everything that got missed, the other people in their life. Yeah. That didn't catch it or didn't do anything about it.
Or didn't care.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting just to have that perception of someone. So I think everyone likes it when things are neat and tidy, black and white. They're good, they're bad. And most of 9 times out of 10, if not more, they're not a good or bad person. They're a person who did a bad thing. They had bad things done to them and it affected them psychologically and they didn't get help and they went on to do something horrible. And that doesn't take away from, because then there's the other part that people talk about is, the victim's perspective, the families. They don't want that drawn out again. They don't want to have to, a new documentary will come out and then people want to talk to the family again and they're trying to move past it. And that's a very fair perspective as well. They don't, they deserve peace after that.
You have to also like recognize that the true crime industry right now is just huge.
It is.
It's very, very huge. And while we do it because we know people are interested, like we're interested in like telling people's stories. Yeah. We don't like to play like sleuths so much because there's some cool podcasts that you listen to, like Up and Vanish. That first season like absolutely led to the conviction of the killer. And that was insane. Like, so those investigative podcasts can be,
they have done some good.
They have done some good. Yeah. But I think there's also something that like we have to be aware of too, is like, towing the line between, telling these people's stories who we think, they're important,
and sensationalizing.
And then sensationalizing or like idealization, which is the thing that happens with Ted Bundy so much just because he was like physically attractive, I guess.
They run with it, and I think
I don't personally get it because I don't see him as attractive. Like, I mean, like he's not ugly, but he's just like a dude. Yeah. But maybe it was like an in-person charisma kind of thing. There's some people that they're like, it's like the charisma and the energy that they kind of carry with them is like,
that's like most guys I dated. I look back and I'm like, the fuck? but being with them felt good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but like it's a thing, very much a thing.
Yeah.
There's something I was gonna say, and I forgot.
One thing that we do hope to do, not about true crime or witchy, but now about paranormal, that I totally forgot to mention. We do have a goal on Patreon of, I forget how many Patreon members.
It's set pretty high.
We should probably bring it down. But one of our goals is to actually be able to do like some like not regularly, but like a special, we do a paranormal investigation.
Yeah.
And we need equipment for that. As well as like
a couple of things.
And we definitely want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that we're also hopeful of. Like, so I mean, we'd appreciate
theater.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
Graham just needs to call Tom. He'll get us in.
Yeah, I remember when I covered that episode. That one, I think, I forget what he said about like the spirits, because I know that he brought a medium in to kind of help take a lot of those spirits to the light, but I know some, I think, decided to stay. There's still some paranormal activity there.
Right. Well, and then I love the paranormal topic. Sometimes I wish that was more than what it gets on our podcast. It's just, that's my heart. With all the different like ideas that people have, different mediums, because there's some mediums that are like, there is no like having to be sent to the light. They can go anytime they want. If they're hanging around, they're choosing to hang around, which always, that then fascinates me in going somewhere. Like, why are you here? It's a whole thing.
And then you like think about, remember the movie The Others, where like, do they even know they're dead? But then I almost think, for me, I would like to think that like it's more like that energy signature.
Yeah,
where residual. It's just like, thank you, residual energy, where like it's like you're seeing the residual energy relive kind of like their day-to-day activities. Like when you hear stories of ghosts, like, oh, and then she like went down in the kitchen and started baking stuff every morning, like she did in her previous life.
Because think about it, why would a ghost do that in the afterlife?
Like, I have all the time in the world. I guess I'll just do the same thing I did when I was alive.
Right.
But then, I remember something you said when you were talking about, I forget if it was in your Norse pagan vulva interview, but you mentioned something about how the Norse believe like your soul is kind of fragmented.
Yeah.
There's different parts of your soul that when you pass goes to different places.
Yeah. There's different parts that make you what you are.
Exactly. That there's not just like this one core
soul and body.
And then that's it. And I thought that was very interesting, and wondering if that has something to do with, the part of them that moves on to that other realm, the part of them that stays behind. And then also you think about the part of them that genealogically they pass on.
Right.
Like, it's like a part of you, like.
See, honestly, like, I feel like just that topic, not only would it take up a whole episode, I think it would make for a good episode just to think about. Because I know for me, when I first learned about it, it blew my mind, because I was like, I never considered that we could potentially be so many different pieces. We are really complex. I mean, even if it's not that, who fucking knows? We're layers of the same thing over multiple dimensions. I like to trip my mind out a lot.
Well,
I really do.
Same, because I've had the thought of like if I were to like lose all my memory, even though I am me, but like the me that's me right now, it like dies. If I were to like blank slate,
like eternal,
like an internal blank slate.
What's that movie? Eternal Sunshine.
Oh, Eternal Sunshine of the Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Yeah, I mean, like, I think she like loses her partial memories, because it's like she loses her memories of him.
Yeah.
But if I were to like fully clear my RAM, but I'm still, like, I just like
clear the cookies.
Or like if you think of 50 First Dates, Drew Barrymore's character, where she wakes up and she just clears her RAM up until a certain point of her life. That person that she was up until before her RAM clears, like, is dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting, I think, with like memory and like your experiences that accumulate throughout your life. Aren't we just like dying over and over again once we like learn something new?
They do
when we change, like, it's like the whole thing with like everything you do, it like splits into an infinity of other different scenarios or something like that.
They say when you have a memory, you're actually remembering the last time you remembered it, rather than the first memory.
Oh my God.
Isn't that kind of weird to think about? There's so many things where I'm like, I can picture it as if it like just happened, but then keeping that in mind, it's like, I don't know.
It's interesting.
It's almost like, and honestly, like when you're trying to memorize something, you have to go over it over and over and over and over again to really make it stick. That would be like having 1 million copies of that piece of information in your brain. Right? I don't know.
Interesting stuff. We could talk about this stuff forever. But yeah, anyways, bringing it back.
Yeah.
So yeah, as far as like our hopes and dreams for the for the podcast, yeah, we're really hoping to just do more.
Yeah.
And give you guys more content that like you guys clearly like us if you're listening.
Well,
yes. Yeah, we just hope to just continue to make the show better for you guys. Also, thank you so much to everyone that's been listening, whether you're newer or if you've been here from the very beginning. Like, just thank you. Like, I mean, we do this because we love doing it, but you guys are like passion fuel. Yeah. Like,
we would still do it if no one listened. But
I don't know. Speak for yourself. I like people listening to me talk.
I have no fire in me, in my chart. I would do it. I would do it. But it's nice. I don't want to say it's a validation. It's exciting. That's what it is. It's a certain drive. That, if I was doing it with no listeners, it would be, it'd be fun. It'd be fun. And I would do it. But knowing that people listen and that people are enjoying it and they want more, it's a different kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, for me, one of the most important things that I find joy in life is just connecting with people. And I think that's why I'm like, I need people to be listening. Maybe for me, I do need that validation. But it just, like the amount of people that we've connected with because of this podcast, the amount of things I've learned because of other people's paths is just astounding. Like, I don't think I've ever, like, my spiritual journey has like grown exponentially in just the last year because of this podcast. And it came, I think, in an integral time when everything shut down and there wasn't as much connection.
Right.
And so for me, I'm like doubly thankful for the podcast because of that. Because I'm an extrovert. Like, I need that connection with people. Even with this, I like still had like moments where I was like doom and gloom, like, Gavin, I'm all alone. And he's like, I'm literally right here.
Whereas I'm the complete opposite. I'm such an introvert. Things shut down and people were complaining about being at home. That, I don't mean like complaining. It's a valid issue.
Yeah, I was complaining.
But I was like, well, there's stuff to do at home. Just chill.
Whereas I'm having to like
issues with it.
Start new anxiety meds because of just
and I think that as not right when I joined, but as we've continued to grow has made me even more excited. Just the fact that we are so similar in certain ways and so different in other ways. Different. And I think it allows for information to come out in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Because I think you need people who can agree and who can also have very different outlooks
and perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that we also highlight in like our current manifesto. If you like go to thenewwitches.com and honestly, like the first thing that you see is kind of our little manifesto about who we are.
Yep.
And we talk about how we're two witches with very diverse perspectives. Mm-hmm. And yet we are so similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So I think it just is like a really perfect blend of.
It is.
I mean, we're kind of like yin and yang when you like look at us like visually, like you're dark on the bottom and light on top, and I'm like the opposite.
White was not the right shirt. Do you like? You can't see my neck.
You
like
look
it's just
angelic.
I'm not white. I'm an angel.
We should have had this like one light be like the full warmth light
for me,
and then cool for me because I'm like. Oh my gosh, y'all! Thank you so much for listening. I think we've pretty much covered everything we wanted to chat about in this special anniversary episode.
So. We talked about how we want to grow. Yeah. How do you want to grow just as yourself as a podcaster?
Oh my God. I think for me, a very pragmatic goal of mine is for us to get to a point where I'm editing like a week in advance of when a podcast
ahead of schedule.
Yeah, actually ahead of schedule. That was one thing, like, actually, like, when I was doing this with Melanie, we were even at some point, like, 2 to 3 weeks ahead of schedule, which was great. And then, you know, that gap started becoming smaller and smaller when I was just me. Yeah. And at this point, when I'm editing is literally, like, a few hours before the episode goes live. It's always, like clockwork, like, Tuesday night, all right, no one talked to me, I have to go edit for, like, 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I love to do it. It's fine. But, you know, I think just that will also help, I think, with the way that we map our future episodes. Mm-hmm. Now, that aside, as like purely a podcaster, the way that I would love to continue to grow is, I think just for me, I just love our ethical witchcraft series. Mm-hmm. So just continuing to like learn about that. And I feel like I understand so many of the concepts, but I may not be so eloquent in talking about those like social justice kind of issues. And for me, I think I just need to be more well versed in it. Like I'm all about social justice and equity and all of that, and protecting people's, you know, like sacred practices and whatnot. And so if there's anything that I ever say that's like, oh, not the best, I apologize and I want to do better. So for that, I'm going to continue to work on getting better. I also am just learning. I think I'm in a part in my practice just purely as a witch where I'm really learning the things that I really love to do that come naturally to me. Yeah. And so continuing my studies with tarot, continuing my moon magic, and I'm so close to finishing my herbalism certificate too, which is really exciting.
Yay.
So, yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I very much love that.
How about you?
Let's see. Podcast wise, I guess notes wise kind of want to be in the same way, ahead of schedule. Sometimes I am. And sometimes not. Very rarely am I finishing notes like right before they need to be done.
That's me.
I try really hard to be, you know, prepared, but I think actually that did happen once. I needed a topic and I had one already done. It wasn't a witchy one though. I think that was a paranormal. That was my alien. Yeah. Types of encounters. So I'd like to do that. Like I have a lot of different types of episodes opened that I've started notes on, but like none of them are done. So like dedicating more time to actually having them be done. Nice. And have like a library of notes. And I think in general, I don't know. I think maybe because I have that kind of analytical mind. I don't know if that's really what it is, but like all the different parts of me as a witch and a podcaster and everything, I keep kind of separate. And to do better as a podcaster, I want to be able to bring everything together more. Like, I don't know. It's like I need things to be neat and categorized.
Yeah. And thank God for Trello.
Oh my God.
If you have not checked out Trello and you need organization in your life, like project management organization, check it out. It's amazing.
It really is.
It's how we like organize all of our like everything that's on deck and in what phase each episode is in. It's like awesome.
Yeah. Like my mind in a way, I can't really say that, but like I'd like it to be like Trello in my brain. Like I like when things are neat and organized, but sometimes I strive for that so much that it's almost like like we were talking about fragmenting different parts of me. And I feel like sometimes my representation in the podcast, I'd like to bring more of that forward, such as like being disabled, having a disability, and how that, like we've talked so much about beginner witches, new witches, even older witches, and all the things that they say you can or can't do, or you need to have this. And it's like there's this light bulb moment that happens for me that's like, Laura, like you're part of the disability community. You can absolutely bring that into that topic. Accessibility is an issue.
Yeah.
And, you know, even little things. I watched someone who was like, I want to give readings, but like I still don't have my cards memorized. So sometimes I still need the little booklet or like little cheat sheet, and people were giving them a hard time. And I was like, oh yeah, on one hand I could see like you want it connected with your intuition, but at the same time that I'm like, Laura, don't forget, you're part of the disabled community. Your brain doesn't always work. That's just a fact. Sometimes we have days where I had like the worst. I've had times where like I'm putting food away in a container for leftovers. And I put it in the drawer with the containers. And a week later, I'm wondering what happened to that food because I completely forgot about it. And then I find it rotten in the drawer.
Oh, yikes.
But like that happens.
That's life. That's part of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's physical aspects to that as well. But I think trying to be maybe a better, now I'm like turning this into something different, a better voice for all the different communities that I am a part of. Yeah. Let's sum it up as that.
Yes, the intersectionality.
Yeah.
Of your identity.
Yep.
Yeah. And as a witch?
I want to, I don't know how to put that into words. This last year kind of allowed myself to really get into being kind of the mundane witch, and that like I don't have to do something witchy all the time because I've been focusing on my health for the last year. Honestly, like the last year and a half, ever since my diagnosis, I kind of went really easy and did a lot of like self work versus trying to expand anything that I do, really. And I feel like I'm at a good place where I still want to do that, but I want to get back into things more. Making things more of like an everyday thing, but no pressure.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of us struggle with that, wanting to be like the witch that does witchy things every day. And sometimes that's just not feasible. So I think, you know, obviously having self-forgiveness is very important. Self-compassion.
Yeah. I think I went too far that way though.
Oh, okay.
The last year and a half. Now I was doing a reading for myself just the other day, and I forget what, I don't even remember what card I pulled up, and I pulled it up and I'm like, I know this. I know this isn't a brain fart moment. I just haven't done this in so long now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of a thing. Like I rarely pick my cards up these days because I've been allowing myself to just focus on like inner Laura, but not using that tool, even though I have it right there.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else?
When we stop recording, you will be, I'm sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening / watching.
Yeah.
Hello. You have been listening / watching to The New Witches, and I am Maria.
I'm Laura.
If you'd like to continue to follow us and get in touch with us, connect with us on social media, we're at The New Witches pretty much everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. If you'd like to become a Patreon subscriber, we give you monthly bonus content. You're also added to our close friends list. We do a lot of like behind the scenes kind of content on our Instagram stories, so you get to see that. That's only for our Patreon members. And you get private readings with Laura as well. And in the future, when we do have merch, you will have also discounts to merch. And yes, the place to find us is patreon.com/thenewwitches if you'd like to support us there. Finally, if you'd like to participate in a future Listener Stories episode, you can check out our website, thenewwitches.com, go to our contact page. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again. We have a submission form there. You can also email your question or story into thenewwitches@gmail.com. And finally, if you like to call us and leave us a voicemail, it goes straight to voicemail. Don't worry, you don't have to talk to anybody. And you also, just by the way, have 3 minutes to tell your question or story. The phone number for that is 707-559-8111. Thank you so much for joining us, for everyone who's been listening from the beginning and whoever's just joining along in our journey. We're appreciative for each and every one of you.
We love you.
We love you. Yeah. Stay kind to each other and stay witchy.
Keep it creepy.
Bye.
Bye.
We did it.
Yay.
Awesome.